Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Monday, and what a very happy Monday it is after that fantastic win for Arsenal yesterday at St James's Park, 2-0. They came out on top at Newcastle in what was, I think that's Arsenal's best result of the season. I think it's Arsenal's best performance of the season. That was a proper win yesterday. I said it in the video I posted from St James's Park after the game. It was a real intense afternoon. The atmosphere, the pace of the game, the challenges at Newcastle sort of threw at Arsenal. For them to come through it and to win, to keep a clean sheet, it was a proper performance, especially under given the pressure they were under. They knew they had to win. They knew any drop points and that was it, game over, Manchester City's title. And so to produce that level of performance in a game of that sort of magnitude under that amount of pressure, I think was really good, and I think that tops everything that I've seen from Arsenal this season. They won it in a different way than, say, when they went to Stamford Bridge or White Hart Lane, and they sort of controlled that match and they played Chelsea and Spurs off the park. This was a very different win, but it was tougher, I thought, and Newcastle were a better team than either Chelsea or Tottenham this season, and I thought they did really well. I was no surprise that Mikel Arteta, speaking afterwards, was talking about his pride, and it keeps Arsenal alive, and that's all they can do at this point, isn't it? It's all they can do. They can just try and put the pressure on Manchester City, let them know they're not going to go away, and see if City can handle it. You would suggest they can, because they've done it so many times, but it's football, anything can happen. So all Arsenal have to do is keep winning, and given the run they are on, to get that win against Chelsea and then back it up with winning at St James's Park, I thought was really impressive. Now they've got a really difficult game next weekend against Brighton, to try and continue this winning run. I thought Mikel yesterday was a bit of a genius move before the game, in the pre-match sort of meeting at the hotel before the team left. He got them all together, he got the big screen out, and he played them All or Nothing, the Amazon documentary, and he played them the Newcastle game at the end of last season and made them all watch it, and made them all look at their faces and at the staff's faces and at everyone's faces in the changing room after the game, and just made them watch it and made them remember what it felt like, the disappointment of that game, and the disappointment not just in the defeat but in the performance, and the fact that they didn't turn up really in such a huge game. And he made them watch it, and I think it made a big think Martin Odegaard spoke about it after the game. Aaron Ramsdale spoke about it after the game. I think it really sort of hit a chord with the players, and I think that played a big part in their performance yesterday. You could see it, the determination in them. They were all absolutely up for it, and I think it was a brilliant move by Arteta to do that. And he spoke about it after the game, and he said, we had to feel it. It wasn't enough just to talk about it, as in what happened last season. We had to see it. We had to recognise our faces, not just the players, but what it meant for the staff as well. It's football. You can win or lose, but that feeling that we didn't do enough on the day, we had to put that right. And there was a sense of revenge about Arsenal. They all talked about it after the game as well. I think they all were just so determined to put right what happened at Newcastle. They've had a lot of time to think about it. It's been a season, pretty much bang on a year since that defeat at Newcastle. And, it was a defeat that ended the season basically last season. And they wanted to put it right. And I think that really was a big driving force in that performance yesterday, because it was a type of performance I haven't seen from Arsenal for a long time. I think that block from Granit Xhaka in the second half just absolutely epitomised it, because he had no right to get there. When you look at the sort of freeze frame when Joe Willock first gets the ball in that space, Xhaka's like 10 yards away. Willock should be able to get that shot away before Xhaka gets there, but the determination, the speed that Xhaka reacts in to get there and get that block, it just summed up the performance for me. They were all so dialed in from the start, and I think a big part of that is what Mikel did before the game, and the way he motivated them and the way he got them up for it. And there was definitely a sense of revenge. It was you got that feeling. It was a sense of revenge. Mikel even, where is it? Here he is. He said, he was asked, how did the players respond when you showed them that clip on Amazon All or Nothing? And he said, I was looking at the video, so I didn't see their faces, but you don't have to be a genius to see it. The word was pain, and then the desire for revenge. I think they had that today in their bellies, and I think they did. I think you could see that in the performance and in the way they approached the game, the way they stood up to what Newcastle threw at them, and they threw an awful lot at them, and Arsenal stood up to it and sort of sort of met them face on, and yeah, that's why I think it was the best performance of the season. But let me know what you guys think. How does that rank for you in terms of Arsenal's performances? There's some big wins this season, some really big performances, especially away from home. Where does yesterday rank in that? Let me know in the comments below. Just continuing on from what Mikel had to say, when he was asking that, felt like a big statement when he said, well, how do you sum it up? He said, I think the word to describe it is pride. When you have question marks, you have to resolve them straight away. When you have the emotions that we had last year in that dressing room after the game, you have to feel them again, realise how nasty they are, and then find a way to approach the game differently, because demands were going to be different from last year. The boys did extremely well. I'm really, really proud of them. There was a lot of talk after the match. Like Eddie Howe, certainly the Newcastle journalists up in the press room afterwards, you could tell they were really desperately trying to get the sort of story and get both managers to react to the, how Arsenal sort of approached the game management, the way they were, sort of going down and taking their time over goal kicks and everything like that, and the way the crowd were getting wound up. And the Newcastle press pack were definitely trying to get the story out of Howe and Arteta didn't go there at all. He shut it down straight away, just refused to talk about it. And Eddie Howe, to be fair, he didn't really kick off about it. He made a couple of comments, but nothing major. And he's not got a leg to stand on. He can't absolutely. If Eddie Howe had kicked off and had a go at Arsenal, considering the way Newcastle played at the Emirates in that game, and the way that Newcastle pretty much played every season, when you look at the numbers in terms of how much the ball's in play, how quickly they teams restart games after a player's gone down, Newcastle would just rank right at the top for all of that. So you wouldn't have had a leg to stand on if you went for it. And look, Arsenal managed the game absolutely brilliantly. I thought Mikel said we did what we had to do to win the game, and they did it. And they just showed the sort of tactical nous and an ability to get over the line that perhaps at times you question whether they had that in them. Was that one thing they were still lacking in the sort of development of this team? And I thought they showed it yesterday. And a team like Manchester City would go to St James's Park and they'd get a win like that. They'd get themselves in front and then they'd shut the game out. They'd frustrate everyone. It would be tactical, fouling or tactical breaks in play, that sort of stuff. And that's what you do, is what top teams do. And they have to get to learn to be able to do that. And they're going to have to be able to do that in the Champions League next season. And so I think it was a real sort of step forward, I thought, in Arsenal's development as a team yesterday, the way they saw that game out. And it just did make me laugh, the reaction to the Newcastle fans and how wound up they're all getting. And it's just like, yeah, people in glass houses, boys, people in glass houses. You shouldn't really be kicking off about that, considering what your team does. But yeah, credit to Arsenal for that. I thought that was really good. And Mikel said, how important was it you to show the City that you're not giving up? Said that's where we are. We keep digging. The prize is there. It's not too far. The only thing we can do is keep insisting and not turn our backs and lose focus on something else. Be determined every single day. Let's keep going and see what happens. It certainly feels like Arsenal believe. It feels like there's still the belief there. You don't go and produce a performance like that at St James's Park if you don't believe you can still win this title. So there is belief there. And whether that ultimately ends up not being enough, we'll have to wait and see, because Manchester City is still in such a commanding position. You still fully expect Manchester City to go on and win this league, but they've not got the easiest games to go, and all Arsenal can do is keep winning. City now have got to go to Everton at the weekend, which is not going to be easy. Yes, Everton are a bit of a shambles this season, but they absolutely have to win Everton. They have to get points. It's at Goodison. It's going to be raucous at Goodison, and that is not going to be an easy game for Manchester City at all. You still expect they will go there and win because they're so much better than Everton, but this is a sort of match that you see in a season where teams can slip up because the relegation threatened team can just produce that type of performance that gets them over the line. And the fact that it's sandwiched in between the two Real Madrid games as well, it's going to be frustrating for Pep. He would have been looking at that Arsenal's game yesterday and thought they might well drop points here. This could be the game there. The title is completely done and dusted. That will let me rest players against Everton to make sure that the squad is in best possible shape for the two legs against Real Madrid. He's not going to be able to do that now. He can't really rest players against Everton because he can't afford to drop points. So that was why it was really, really important for Arsenal just to keep winning, to keep the pressure on Manchester City and to see what happens, because we've seen it before in football and it can happen. Teams can suddenly drop a couple of points, and if City do that, then this title race is still very much alive. So it was a really big win for Arsenal, big performance. Jorginho, fantastic yesterday, deserves a lot of credit. I think Jorginho is probably going to start every game now between now and the end of the season. I can't imagine Thomas Partey is going to come back into the side, which is mad, really. You think it's inconceivable not so long ago that Arsenal would go to a game like Newcastle away at St James's Park with a physical sort of team that Newcastle are and have Thomas Partey fit and he wouldn't start. But I think it says a lot about Thomas Partey's form at the moment. It has fallen off a cliff. leading up to him being dropped against Chelsea. It was the right call to drop him against Chelsea. I thought he would come back yesterday into the starting 11 just because of the type of game it was going to be. It felt like a game for Partey rather than Jorginho. The fact he didn't, as I said, I think says a lot about his form at the moment and what he's been showing. And I was worried when I saw Jorginho in the starting lineup. I have to admit, I thought, is he going to get overrun? But he was brilliant in sort of all levels yesterday. You would talk about Jorginho as his legs have gone and stuff like that, but he covered more distance than any other Arsenal player yesterday. He had more touches, more passes into the final third. It was just a proper complete midfield performance from Jorginho, and he played very well against Chelsea as well. So barring any injury or anything like that, I think he's going to start every single game now between now and the end of the season, and Partey's going to have to make do with a place on the bench. I'd be surprised if that changes. And Jorginho was speaking about it yesterday after the game. He was talking about how beautiful the atmosphere was and how those are the sort of games you want to play in when you're a kid growing up. And his experience now, it could be so crucial over these final 3 games. And you kind of look at his performance, you look at Kivior's performance again. I thought he was really, really good, Kivior. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, obviously, in football, but you do wonder. You look at it and think, could Mikel have made those changes before the Manchester City game? Especially Kivior. Even, the Southampton game, did he really need to persist with holding when it was clearly having a negative impact on the team and results? As I said, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and you're going to look back on a lot of decisions made during the season, but you just wonder with that one. The way Kivior's looked since he's come into the side, it's been very, very impressive, and you do just wonder why Mikel persisted so long with Rob Holding. But as I said, all hindsight and everything. Martin Odegaard yesterday, fantastic performance again from Martin Odegaard. I mean, running out of superlatives to talk about him. And he spoke about, after the game, he said, we show something special here. To come here and win is not easy. We had to be very smart and ugly and be ugly at times. It's a big step for a young team like ours to come here and do the things that we did. It shows we have come a long way. Last year was one of the toughest days of my career here, to be honest. After dropping points against Man City, to win against Chelsea and then come here shows the mentality. See, even Odegaard there saying last year was one of the toughest nights of his career. That did strike a chord with all the players. They wanted revenge yesterday. And as he said as well in those comments, I think the level of performance, the way Arsenal saw the game out, the way they had to dig in, I think it did show another step forward in the development of this Arsenal team. Kieran Tierney, just before I go, just want to pay credit to Kieran Tierney. I thought it was a really good cameo for him. And if he does go in the summer, I was sitting there watching it in the last 20 minutes when he came on, and I was just like, I don't want him to leave. I really don't want Kieran Tierney to leave. I understand why he probably will. And I think for Arsenal, it's probably going to be a good thing because they're going to get some money that they can reinvest for a player who's potentially not first choice. But I just look at it and I just think, do you really want to weaken your squad? Because you are, and I've said this before in a video, so apologies for repeating myself, but you just feel like you're going to weaken the team, weaken the squad if you sell Tierney, because you're just not going to get a better left back as to come in as cover, backup, whatever you want to call it for Zinchenko. And he made such an impact when he came on yesterday. Zinchenko is struggling as well. He's been struggling for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if Tierney starts against Brighton at the weekend. We'll wait and see on that. But that's all I was thinking when I was watching Tierney in those last 20 minutes yesterday. I was just like, I don't want you to go. I want him to stay. I want him to, especially up with Arsenal in the Champions League next season. They need a really strong squad with good players. And selling Tierney, although I can understand financially it makes sense, and I can understand 100% why Tierney would want to probably go and start playing regularly because he's too good to be sitting on the bench. But from an Arsenal point of view, having him in the squad next season will certainly make it a lot easier when it comes to the demands of playing in Champions League and in the Premier League. Okay, before I go, just wanted to quickly say 81 points Arsenal are on now this season. That's their highest tally since 2007-2008 when they finished with 83. So all they've got to do is get one win in the last 3 games, and that's their highest tally for 15 years. If they win the last 3 games, that's 90 points, which I think is level with the Invincibles. It shows the level of performance that Arsenal produced this season. Absolutely incredible. They've scored 83 goals now, which is their highest since 2008-2009. Still 3 games to go to add to that. Just so many numbers which just show exactly how good this season has been, how strong Arsenal have been. And unfortunately, it's just a shame they got a team like Manchester City competing against them, because this title would have been wrapped up a long, long time ago had it not been for that pesky club from Manchester, who are just an absolute relentless machine, who, don't forget, have got 100 charges levelled against them by the Premier League for breaking the rules. So we'll see how that goes eventually after the lawyers spend years trying to drag it through the courts. But anyway, enough of that. Have a very good bank holiday if you're here in the UK watching this, or wherever you're around the world. Have a great start to your week, and I'll be back to speak to you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon.